What's up, guys? This is Scott right here with,
OC?
Shuku.
and we're about to talk some anime and recent television shows that we've watched. I feel like this anime season, at least I don't really keep up with anime seasons usually, but this one is, in particular, is pretty interesting for me.
Interesting.
Mob Psycho season 3, as well as the Bleach being out again. That's a big one for me. And then everyone's raving about Chainsaw Man, so that's what I've been watching recently.
Yeah, I saw the first episode, Chainsaw Man. I'm watching dub because I'm a dub whore. I don't care what anybody says. And yeah, I thought the first episode was really strong. And the cool part with the dub was one of the monsters was the same voice actor as like the original Frieza from Dragon Ball Z, that old lady. So it was cool hearing Frieza being like, "You're going to be destroyed." I was like, Frieza. So yeah, but yeah, it seems like an interesting show. I like the aesthetic of the. It's the same. The people who do the animation studios, the same people doing Attack on Titan.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, with the CGI Titans and whatnot. So yeah, I like the aesthetic of it. It's a pretty interesting thing. I can't wait for the next episode or so.
Yeah, so it's on episode 5. So I guess we're not going to spoil anything. We'll do our best because like we haven't all watched the same stuff.
Yeah.
So we're just going to be talking about any shows that we've been watching recently that were like of note.
Yeah.
So season Chainsaw Man is at episode 5, and so far it's been good, but like there are things with character motivation that I really question.
Okay.
But I mean, like it does fit with anime and stuff like that, I guess. But I really hope that the character grows.
Do you think, could it be, again, I only saw the first episode, but could it be something where it's just sort of like a silly, kind of like a joke kind of a thing where it's like, oh, this is my motivation?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay, I was just making sure it was a joke thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like it's a joke thing, but at the same time, it is his motivation. So you'll see. You'll see what I mean.
See.
Yeah. But other than that, right now, it feels like an anime that I would not care to watch on unless it changes.
Okay.
So we'll see. But again, I'm the guy who says that Jujutsu Kaisen's okay. So
Well, I kind of agree with you on that one. With Jujutsu, like I think it's a little bit overhyped. When I finally
Right.
got to watch the whole first season.
yeah, but the rest of the internet disagrees with us. So
Really?
Wait, so people are thinking that it's like the best thing?
Yeah,
well,
well-
to be fair, when I was surprised. I think what made me want to watch it was when I saw clothing. Like when I was going to stores, I'm like, why is there so many clothing merchandise of
interesting.
Jujutsu Kaisen? So it must be something.
I enjoyed Jujutsu Kaisen. I don't know if it's
I
like,
enjoyed it, but I still think it's as an anime, it's like overall it's just okay compared
I feel
to
like, yeah, I think with Jujutsu Kaisen, it's just some of the characters, at least some of the characters are super memorable, but not all of them are like hitting it with me.
I think
personally.
conceptually it's cool. I just think it just hasn't fleshed out in a way where I'm like,
Yeah,
really
it needs
interested.
time. It needs some more time.
yeah.
So
But I feel like certain animes, they like not the older animes, but like newer animes, they do a good job with like making me care about a character.
yeah, like
quickly.
Demon Slayer. That's
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
example.
yeah,
Slayer's a good example. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen kind of just like they float by without me kind of grasping
Yeah.
onto them.
Like
Yeah.
to me, the only thing that stood out for me, other than the fighting style, which it's cool but not my kind of taste of fighting, was the comedy, because it just seems like they just have random jokes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
where
that's
it's
true.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I think boobs are better than ass. Like it was
Yeah.
just random.
Yeah,
that come
very very anime, and
Yeah.
I think you'll see some of those like anime tropes being played out in Chainsaw Man too.
For sure.
Yeah, Mob Psycho though, I'm loving it. It's season 3. Like, I rewatched Mob Psycho recently, season 1 and 2, and it's I don't know. It's something about Mob Psycho is very interesting. At first, it's like an okay show, but like the more you watch of it, the more you sort of it does a good job building up the characters, and the more you feel for them, and the more you feel like the message of the show as well is just like powerful.
Yeah.
Like how like different people are good at different things, and like even though you're great at something, it doesn't mean you should consider yourself superior or special or like better than other people,
that's something.
like it's a great message. That was like season 1. And like season 2, there's just like some great stuff with the character interactions that were like just like amazing.
Okay, I definitely
Like
need
they
to see season 2.
like the show makes me want to cry sometimes.
Oh,
That's how
really?
powerful it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Season
Really?
2. I know you haven't watched season 2.
Yeah.
But in season 3, the recent episode, it was pretty powerful too. It's like him. I don't want to spoil it, but it's basically two characters fighting, and it's like they built up the relationship enough to the point where it's like powerful, like emotionally. Yeah, and I think that's what that anime does great. It's like the fights are not just fights; they're like they have emotional impact behind them.
That's good.
Yeah, that's important. I was gonna say one thing I really liked about Mob Psycho is it because it's the same creator of One Punch Man, but it's that subverting of your expectations, because there's so many moments where you think this is supposed to be the thing, but then it twists to this and twists to that. So it's really good on a comedic aspect of really subverting people's expectations.
And the animation is great too. So it's like the fight choreography is cool, you know,
Okay.
and memorable and everything like that. So it's not just great fighting, but I mean, like Jujutsu Kaisen for me is just like, oh, it's this amazing fight choreography, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
This has that plus the emotional like aspect to it,
And it's comedy, right? So
and
it's fun.
and there's comedic aspects to it too.
Yeah.
So that's just my pitch of Mob Psycho. If you have never checked it out before,
Yeah, I haven't checked out Mob Psycho yet, so
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those you gotta like stick with it for. It's not like long, so it's not hard to do it, but like I feel like you gotta watch all the way through season 1 and then get to like mid season 2ish for you to feel that like strong impact with all the characters.
interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I've been busy during when season 2 came out, but I'll definitely want to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
But a show that I've been catching up is My Hero, and I've been enjoying the season so far. It's been,
Better than last season.
yeah, I didn't hate season. You know, I've never hated a season of My Hero. There are been like things where I was like, for example, that one season where they were focusing on the band, I didn't care about that stuff.
Right.
But as far as this season goes, yeah, very interesting. We're already starting off with them infiltrating the whole villain stuff, and it's been an interesting run. So I'm really curious to see where it goes.
Nice. I need to catch up with My Hero. I'm slacking on my anime recently. But yeah, My Hero, I recently jumped back into One Piece a little bit, just so that I can not fall more than 700 episodes behind, so I can keep up a little bit.
Yeah, thinking about One Piece, I feel like I need to rewatch some of it because like
Really?
I've delayed so long between like when I watch it for the dub, because I only watch dub. I'm like, oh, what the heck happened recently? But at the same time, they do so many flashbacks that I shouldn't have to worry about it.
I don't know if you have to worry about rewatching One Piece. I don't know if you want to go get into that.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Yeah, it's a bit.
But
much.
there are some great scenes I wouldn't mind rewatching. You know?
Yeah, I'm still in like Thriller Bark, so that's kind of where I took my break, was at the beginning of Thriller Bark. And
which one was Thriller Bark again?
they're on this like a zombie island.
Gotcha.
So I've jumped back into that one. So
What episode is that? Like,
it's like 340.
I knew he was gonna say.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not even to peak One Piece yet. You're like
Right. I mean,
get to like 500 something.
what I really enjoyed the whole Ennis Lobby arc, all the stuff that was happening in Ennis Lobby, and I was on a high watching through those episodes of One Piece, and that was where I was like, oh yeah, Nico Robin is my favorite character now in this world. But
What happened in that arc again?
that was when so basically they have to rescue Robin, and they sentenced her to die at Ennis Lobby, and the Straw Hat Pirates have to go and
Right.
basically.
Was that like right after Water 7 or something, or right?
Yes, that was after Water 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that arc.
That was a good arc.
And then Thriller Bark has kind of been it's cool just because of the crew, and I enjoy watching. I mean, I know that they're gonna have a new crew member with what's his name, the skeleton guy
Yeah.
coming in.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious how that's gonna go, but yeah, I'm just like I low-key want to get to the parts where people are like hyped on One Piece.
Yeah. Get to. I don't know how arcs work. Arcs are just like like online they call it that arc, right? They don't actually announce this is the Impel Down arc or something like that.
I don't
right?
think so. I think
Yeah,
they just
yeah.
call it-
Get to the Impel Down and Marineford arc. That's like, to me, that was the best
Okay.
I've seen so far in One Piece.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm not caught up, so maybe
Right.
it gets even better. But
That's an interesting. Okay, this is an interesting discussion about the whole idea of arcs, because it's like, who labels the arc? Does the fan base label the arc? Do the story people label the arc?
That's a good question.
Like, how do we just name it based off the location?
I think if it's shonen, I feel like the like the Shonen Jump or stuff like that, they might be the ones that label it.
Okay.
That's just a complete guess, but I would assume that the creator has some input.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've also been reading the manga of Berserk,
Okay.
which is really cool. I just got through the Golden Age arc, but that's really great storytelling, and I know that the fan base is like super dedicated and loyal for Berserk, so I'm excited to catch up to where it's at.
Yeah. Bleach, though.
Interesting.
So the thing about Bleach, right? I read the manga, and I think it's kind of like not that great. The ending. I don't actually remember too much of the ending because I read it a long time ago.
So this new season is like
This
the
new season is
conclusion?
like ending it. Yeah. Like it's supposed to be like the way they left off Bleach back then, it did not end.
okay.
The manga
Okay.
like it didn't catch up to the ending of the manga. So that's what they're doing for this new season. But I will say the animation is good, and considering how long it's been since the manga ended, I've forgotten so much that it's like I'm watching it for the first time, not knowing what's about to happen.
How long was the time since the manga ended, or
I'm not sure.
Oh.
It's I feel like at least 5 years.
5 years?
At least.
Okay.
Probably longer, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe even 10 years.
I was gonna say, is it similar to like what Attack on Titan, when it was like it came out in 2003, the anime, and then we didn't get anything until 2017?
Longer.
Okay.
I feel like it's longer. But yeah, I'm excited for it because I'm a huge
Wait,
Bleach
Attack on
fan.
Titan anime came out in 2003.
No, sorry, not 2013.
Oh,
My bad.
okay. I was like,
Yeah,
wait
I was
a
like,
minute. Wait, what?
Yeah. No, sorry, 2013. That's
No,
what I meant.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Bleach fan though.
Okay.
Okay.
Like I watched Bleach when I was a kid. It was one of my first animes. Like it might even be my first anime.
Oh, damn.
Really?
Yeah, like no Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, Dragon
that
Ball and
was-
Dragon Ball Z were my first animes. But like it's weird. I feel like when I was a kid, I categorized Dragon Ball as a different thing.
Okay.
Like I didn't consider it anime because I watched it on like Cartoon Network. And okay, it was my first anime that I watched actively, like on the computer.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. What you're
Interesting.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at that stage, I
YouTube.
wasn't watching Bleach. I felt like Bleach. I mean, because I would only watch random episodes, and I never got into it, on the TV. But we've had that discussion before about like the
Yeah.
anime that we had early on.
Yeah.
But more recently, the other one, I started the first episode of Spy Family. I didn't finish it yet, but there's a lot of TV and anime and movies and stuff to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spy Family is a fun one.
Yeah. It seemed kind of goofy. which-
Yeah, it is. It's
I'm not-
more of a silly anime.
Did any of you guys watch the what was that one anime about the confidence men?
Oh, you're talking about The Great Pretender.
Yes, The Great Pretenders.
Yeah,
Any of you
I've
guys
watched
watch
it.
that?
I
Okay,
watched all
no,
of
I
it.
haven't.
It's good.
I watched it. It was really good, but that's kind of the feel that I got with Spy Family.
No.
The first like beginning part of the first
Yeah,
episode.
I guess the feel, sure, but like it's so different. Like,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
it's
well,
so
I'll
different.
keep watching Spy Family,
Yeah,
and I'll come to that conclusion. But yeah, I enjoyed watching Great Pretenders. That was fun.
yeah. Great Pretender is
Yeah.
like season 1 especially was really well crafted and like really thought out,
Mhm.
and it has more of a serious tone, even though it's very jokey.
Yeah.
It's very funny. I'm saying this in comparison to Spy Family. Spy Family is like almost entirely jokey and
Yeah.
comedic.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I wasn't necessarily sure what to expect from Spy Family because I was aware of the hype around it that like started a few months ago, and I was just like, oh, okay. But I wasn't really clear on like what is this anime about, what is going on here. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's still very enjoyable.
Hop into
Like it's
it.
very entertaining. That
Okay.
anime is very
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah, I was watching it, but I think at the time I was watching it, I was trying to watch all Dragon Ball, so I got distracted with Dragon
Yeah,
Ball
yeah.
at the time. So
Yeah, Dragon Ball is still top tier anime.
it is, it is literally. It's crazy to see. For me, what's crazy for me about Dragon Ball is like, literally, you can see the foundations of Dragon Ball Z, and I feel like it got really good. That part when he fights Commander Pao, all the way to the first when he fights King Piccolo the first time, like those episodes in between, all of that.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah.
it's like a whole different anime. You start seeing the floating, you start seeing all these things that Dragon Ball Z was known for. They started the whole Goku needs to train to get better.
Yeah.
Because before it was just Goku just would win based off
Adventuring.
resourcefulness, right?
Yeah.
But then it was like, okay, I got failed. Let me learn from this guy, and then
I don't know. Angry Goku. Like when he was younger.
it was so good.
When he was fighting King Piccolo.
that was great.
Yeah, that is like top tier, right? Like best like arc for anime
Yeah, I
right there.
agree.
Like it's just when Krillin died, you
Exactly.
know, when Krillin actually died the first time.
Yeah, the first time.
That was true anger,
That's true.
angry Goku right there.
That's true, but it's funny because it's like every time Krillin died, he gets a power up. Because when he died in Dragon Ball Z, he becomes Super Saiyan.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like Krillin died is more of a motivation.
just keep killing
Kill
it.
Krillin, and we get a new power up for Goku.
Yeah. But I love Dragon Ball.
Yeah, definitely. But I guess sort of anime, but not anime news. So they announced that the Avatar movie, the animated movie, is going to come out in 2025.
Whoa, so long.
Well, I think they did that on purpose because Avatar came out 2005, so it's like a 20-year almost.
Sounds like an
anniversary.
excuse.
Yeah, it's an excuse. It's a 20-year anniversary thing.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. I don't like paying too much attention to announcements like that because it's 3 years from now. It's
yeah.
like we'll get it when we get it.
Yeah.
We had Black Adam announced literally 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and then we got it this year. It was like
Yeah.
that those announcements are starting to annoy me. Like as a fan of like film and TV and stuff like that, it's like, why
Yeah.
are you announcing something like that? Oh yeah, like in 5 years we're gonna make this movie. It's like, oh, okay, guy, we'll
Well,
see it when it
As a
comes.
dedicated Avatar fan, I appreciate you informing me.
yeah, that's that. And
Yeah.
also the story's gonna be about Aang, so we have something to
Sure.
sure. You're like they're gonna bait and switch us.
I mean, hey, you never know what's gonna happen.
It's like it's not about Aang. It's actually about it's Aang through Appa's eyes. So we're
It's
seeing
Appa's
Appa
eyes or Momo's eye. It just switches to Momo's character
Yeah,
halfway through. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be excited when it's here. So
yeah.
yeah. In the meantime, there's too much stuff to pay attention to for me. I
Yeah.
keep trying to convince you guys to watch Andor, and nobody's watching. it.
Okay, here's my thing.
It's
When
like-
I saw the first episode, I thought it was all right. Because again, for me with Rogue One, I know people talk about the characters, but at the end of the day, I feel like the only reason why people cared about the characters was because of that mission. It was like they did this epic mission, and we feel sorry for these people because of that epic mission. That's just my thing about it. But what I'm hearing from you is that it's like the best Star Wars thing that's been coming out. And if I've watched things that were mediocre from Star Wars, I guess it's good for me to watch something that is something.
It's interesting to me because I think that most people are sleeping on Andor, and it's weird to me because I was hearing a lot of people hyping over the Boba Fett show that came out like last year or the beginning of this year, and like there was a lot of hype and excitement around that, and then it came and it was just disappointment. And it was like I finally watched it when I was like, oh, I might need to understand what's happening here for something else. I forget what it was, but I watched it. I was like, yeah, this is not a good show at all. And then even
Obi-Wan,
it's like, yeah, there was a whole ton of excitement and hype around that, which was understandable. Like it's Obi-Wan, but realistically, it wasn't like the strongest show. It was kind of like, it was mostly just nostalgia and fun, and it was cool to see Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan, and then also Anakin Skywalker. So it was just mostly fun. But this is like, right now we're filming this, and 10 episodes of Andor have come out, and in the last episode there was this speech from Stellan Skarsgård's character, and he plays he was that professor guy in the first Thor movie.
Okay.
And he plays the Duke in Dune, the fat guy who floats.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actor is really great actor. He's in Andor, and he had this speech at the end of the last episode, and he was just talking about his the rebellion and what he's given up for everything. I don't want to be like spoilery, but it was just like, it felt like Shakespearean. Like,
okay.
It was just like, oh my god, like this is what I've given up. And so his character is great. And Andy Serkis is in this show.
Yeah.
He plays one of the big characters in the last few episodes.
Yeah.
In the last few episodes. And his acting is just on another level. Like the way that he like his stature, he's like shorter than a lot of the actors in the scene, but then his gravitas and his presence. When we talked about presence that an actor can bring into a movie, into a show,
yeah,
and he just brings that. Like when he speaks, you feel it from him. And that's especially true in the show. And yeah, I really am enjoying the storytelling and all of the stuff that has gone into this show. So I think people should definitely watch it.
I think the reason why people are not as like hyped and definitely are like, I guess, not into the show as they should be or as you want it to be is just because I feel like people are burnt out with Star Wars, especially since they were disappointed with Boba Fett, they were disappointed with Obi-Wan, and then again Andor. Although, like I said, Rogue One, definitely one of the best movies that came out during this whole new Star Wars era. But at the same time, it's like there's not much of like emotional connection with this character as opposed to Obi-Wan and Boba Fett. It's like something we have a strong emotional whatever connection with these characters. So I think that's partially the reason for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree
it.
with you. I definitely agree. I might reconsider. I guess for me, maybe I was burned out with Star Wars. So when I saw it, I was like, sure. Like the ending was interesting, I will admit that, but part of me was just kind of like the first episode. I was just kind of like, okay, this guy, this problem, whatever, da da da.
Yeah.
So that's my thing about that. But a show that I've been watching that I feel like people need to be watching and it's been underlooked is Atlanta, since it's about to end. This is the final season of Atlanta.
I started the new season,
and by the time this is probably posted, the show's probably have ended. But I've been loving this season so far. You know, Atlanta is very similar to Boondocks, where they have a lot of social commentary towards about Black people, but it's done from a perspective of there's the hip hop element, the music element into it. And what I love about the show in general is just it's very creative, and it seems like this season, even last season, they're taking a lot of keynotes for Jordan Peele, where they have this horror element. There's this sort of this comedy horror, you know, what the hell's going on? Like, should you be worried? Should we not be worried? Kind of element to this season. And to me, the best episode so far of the season was they did a whole. This episode was basically like it has nothing to do with the characters. They did a whole documentary or mockumentary of the Goofy movie, and basically they explained that the Goofy movie is about black fatherhood, because Goofy is like this father dealing with, and that Goofy was created by a black person, and Disney kind of, you know, take it their own way. So I thought that was a very funny, educational, but like informative episode. And I just, again, Donald Glover, really good. He's just a good artist in general. He's good at his singing. He's good at his acting. He's good at his comedy creating. So, yeah.
I definitely, I started on the first 2 episodes of season 4, and yeah, it's kind of just bittersweet because because this show's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's been 5 years.
Has it only been 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
But I've definitely I've rewatched season 1 and 2 at least 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then season 3 came out recently, like earlier this year. I think season 3 came out, and then season 4
came out. Yeah, season 3 came earlier this year.
Yeah, so yeah, part of me kind of just wants to take it slow and just like, because I know it's gonna be the last season and I just want to enjoy it. But yeah, I'm excited for this season for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess any other shows that I've been keeping up with, I'm still getting close to House of Dragons.
That's ended, right?
Yeah, it's ended a while back. I think
you've watched the last episode.
So we talk about
what'd you think overall?
Overall, the show is great. Overall, the show is great. It's definitely up there with peak Game of Thrones, in my opinion. I think that they did a fantastic job of introducing the characters, the world. They had a lot of, I think this was a setup season, intentionally.
I see.
On a couple of different levels, because
all right, I guess I'll wait.
you have the whole, you know, initial episodes where it's kind of like in the past. Well, I mean, it's all in the past, but they have the time jump where they change characters, or they change actors out for older versions of the characters, and so the whole thing is great. But from what I understand, this whole first season is essentially setting up the actual battle that we're going to go into the rest of the show exploring. And so,
hold up, battle within the kingdom?
Yeah, the battle for the throne, basically.
Okay, so here's my thing about this show, and I guess to be fair, I've only got up to I'm on the next episode is gonna be episode 8, so I've only watched 7 episodes.
Okay,
so take that in perspective, and I've heard things get even better, so who knows? But my gripe with this show, and you know, it's just the direction they're taking, is I just feel like this whole battle to be king is so done pettily here. It just
pettily? Oh petty. No, you're right.
It's
you're
very
right.
petty.
Yeah.
It's very
no, you're absolutely right.
Because the thing with Game of Thrones, and one thing I liked with Game of Thrones, and I'm not a big fantasy person, whatever, but the big thing that is the thing that Game of Thrones is known for is its politics, right? Like it has all this stuff, but the politics was interesting. And it was just the politics of what is the right way to be a king, like what's the right way to rule a kingdom, right? And my problem with this show, even though fine, it's about the same kingdom, whatever, we don't get the viewpoint of what do they want to be king? It's just I deserve to be king. No, I deserve to be king. No, I deserve to be king.
But I think that's also realistic.
It is. It's realistic, but to me, it's done petty, because it's I don't really. Because then at one point it's why do I want to root for this person, or why do I root for that person? I mean, the only person I even want to root for right now is Damien, just because Damien is the most interesting character. But that goes back to another kind of gripe I have, where I just feel like a lot of the characters are a little bit more passive, and there's not more characters actually making plans, making decisions happen.
Yeah.
Rather, we're just kind of waiting for events, characters reacting, and then being like, see, I'm right. Okay, what are you going to do about it? The only character that is doing stuff is Damien. And to me, it didn't seem like after the time skip, he didn't do anything until a certain, I don't want to spoil things, but a certain point where it's like, okay, this happened. All right, now we're gonna do this plan. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just not as compelling to watch that.
I think that's interesting because I get what you're saying, where the motivations for some of these characters to try to get power, it's different from in the original Game of Thrones. I think that they did a good job of trying to establish why these people want power, but I agree with you. Like it's almost like you're realistically, you're weird for rooting for, there's like Team Green and Team Black, and you're weird for rooting for Team Green because their reasons are kind of like, well, you just want to be king just because you want to be king. But I think that's realistic because you, in real life, you have those people with those kind of motivations.
But to me, it just feels like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it just feels like I'm watching, it's like Keeping Up with the Kardashian, or in this case, Keeping Up with the Targaryens. It's like, okay, oh, so this Targaryen did this, oh, this Targaryen slept with this person, so because this person slept with this person, I deserve to be king. And it's just too, for me, it's just too petty with what's going on. Like, I would want something more of like,
I think those elements were still there in the first Game of Thrones.
They were, but again, what I liked about the first Game of Thrones was that, again, it still was a viewpoint. It was still a viewpoint of why, like, there was more deeper behind, like, why I think this would be the better kingdom. Granted, they may have a petty viewpoint. Like, you can argue Dany's viewpoint of what she thinks is a kingdom is very idealistic. Like, that may not work. But however, you can see where she was kind of coming from with it. As opposed with this, it just seems too, maybe it's because it's in the same realm and it's not different realms, but it's just like, I would just want something like, hey, if I was king, I will make things better here. Like, I think this service is not as great. This is why I believe that, as opposed to, well, you know, I'm a king, or I want to be king for this reason. Yeah. So that's just my thing. It's just
Tricky. Make sure you move the mic closer to you.
Okay.
Because you're kind of talking like this.
Oh my God. That's so embarrassing. My rant is now off.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, I think that's my, that's my gripe with it. Like, it's entertaining, right? I do think the performances are well made. Like, I love the actors. They do a good job. I like the cinematography, all that stuff. Like, I will admit, and I know when I first talked about it, I was kind of like I thought the plot was kind of weak, but now as I'm taking my bias aside, I will admit that, like, I enjoyed this season is still enjoyable to watch, and I still want to see it. I just think that as far as direction wise and where I'm going to, it's just, for me, it's a little bit like, I would want it a more, especially since people are comparing it to Game of Thrones, I would want it a more stronger story dynamic behind their motivations, and even just them not being as passive and characters actually taking, like, for example, with Rhaenyra's character, her whole biggest, like, gripe she had was, like, she didn't want to be, you know, she wanted to be queen, but she didn't want to get married. I would have rather see her doing all these kind of plans of, like, okay, what's her plan around that? Like her trying to do something, her failing, and then being like, okay, I have this opportunity where this guy who's not really into women, I can just be with him, have my lover, and get the kingdom. Like, I would rather have that than it just being like, she's just like, oh, I don't want to be king. This is why I hate being king. Run. And then eventually one moment, oh, this guy is not really into women. Hey, you know what? I'm going to marry you, and then I'm going to have my side thing, and I'm going to have, like, I would have rather have that. And I just feel like those elements, story-wise, make it kind of lacking there. But overall, as a show, like, it's not a bad show. I'll never say it's a horrible show. It's an entertaining show, and I'll give it that. Like, I do enjoy the performances. I do enjoy when they do have action. I do like it's good. It's good. It's just those areas is where, like, whenever I hear people say it's like Game of Thrones at its best, I'm like, there's something you're missing about Game of Thrones. You know, it's like, to me, it's like if someone were to compare Teen Titans at its best with Young Justice at its best, where it's like, oh, Teen Titans is just like Young Justice. Well, there's actually this nuance of the story where Young Justice has a little bit more depth, but Teen Titans, granted, it's an entertaining show. So that's just how I feel about House of Dragons. But again, I'm gonna preface and say I've only seen 7 episodes out of what, 10?
Yeah. Did you get? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to do spoilers, so I don't remember exactly what.
The last
episode
part
7
I
is.
saw was
Spoilers.
I guess I'll say somebody's. I won't go details, but basically somebody got their. The kid got his head, or one of the kids got their things aren't off, and then
Somebody
they used
got
it.
an eye missing.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the last part I
Okay.
saw, and then what's her face got to marry her uncle. So we'll get there.
All right.
So that's the last part I saw. So I'll keep that. But as far as just
I think that yeah, no, I think your criticisms are valid, of course. I think that it's just the way that I would describe it is this. So Game of Thrones had a lot of, you know, positives going for it, where we have, I think it was easier to sort of empathize and identify with specific characters who are going for a certain goal. Whereas with this show, it's not as clear cut in my view. It's not as clear cut for different characters. And but the thing with me is that I never really liked a lot of the characters in the original Game of Thrones. I love them, of course, but I never like identified with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never really rooted for anybody in the original Game of Thrones except for Arya. That was she was like the only character that I like was like, oh, I want Arya to win. And so for me, and that was especially relevant.
That's surprising to me, actually.
That was especially relevant after Ned Stark died. But I think I knew that. I think it was spoiled for me that Ned Stark died.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of expecting that. So it wasn't
like, weren't you rooting for him though?
I mean, in a philosophical sense, yes. But I think knowing that he dies kind of took away that.
Okay.
Like,
that
you didn't want
influence.
Rob to win?
I think Rob.
I feel like I was like,
Rob was
Starks all the
cool.
way.
The Starks,
Yeah, me too.
The Starks were great. Rob was cool. I mean, it's hard for me to think back to that time when I was watching it, but I was mostly just in on Arya, and I think
She's a Stark.
Arya Stark. Yeah. I don't know if I would have to rewatch and to understand. Maybe this is where I would have critiqued Rob's decision making in a specific area or something like that.
He definitely had his faults. He was like,
Right.
let's kill the car Stark. Cause a rebellion in my troops.
Yeah. So, but I see what you're saying. I don't necessarily see that as hindrance in my enjoyment of the show. But that's just where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I guess to further on with that, it's not like I need a character where I really agree with.
Yeah, I don't really like, even with this, like, even Daemon is cool, but there's not really any character in House of the Dragon that I'm like, at least in the way that I was with Arya, that I'm like, oh, go.
Yeah,
then.
exactly. So it's not like I need so much of a character like that. I just, to me, it goes back to, like, again, I guess it's like the engagement of the story where it's like, you know, I just think for the reasons of why they're doing it, and then we don't have a proactive, especially with if there was a proactive push where it's like, okay, this person has their scheme, this person has that scheme, and they do have this. It's not to say that they don't. Like, I'm not making it absolute. Like, there is moments where they do characters do their schemes. It's interesting. However, the fact there's a lack of it, it's like, that's what to me makes it less compelling, because then it just becomes a repetitive argument of like, oh, this is why it's like, it's always like almost the same argument again. It's like, this thing happened, this is why I deserve to be king. This thing happened, this is why I deserve to be king. But nobody doing any, okay,
You know what it is? So it goes to the king during this era, what's his name, Viserys.
Yeah,
He-
horrible king, by the way.
Exactly. No. I have the same opinion. It's like he's not a good king. He tries to be noble. He tries to be like this noble character. I think in some ways he's like kind of what Ned Stark would have been as a king in some ways.
Yeah,
But just not without as much strength.
yeah,
And I think that ends up being his downfall and the downfall of his entire family and what leads to the war that's coming. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think that his character being so tragic is kind of the driving force behind why I'm interested in the show.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I
Yeah.
have overall been really really enjoyed the first season.
Okay, yeah. I guess that's what it is. I guess to me, it's just if they're gonna give me sort of this petty reason, I would prefer a more proactive scheme towards actions. Because then from there, or better yet, if it's gonna be really this petty, I would prefer it to be more of like a dramedy, where it's like this is this ridiculous sort of exaggerated, like it's almost like with Dragon Ball, where it's like, oh, I want the Dragon Ball so I can have a bigger butt. Like it's like we know it's ridiculous. It's not this thing where they want me to take this dramatic thing where it's like you don't know the struggle, what it's like to have a low butt and all this kind of like. It's like if you can give me something to balance the pettiness, but it just didn't really do that much other than the performances. And I gotta admit, again, the performances are that good that they can sell a petty reason and make me feel some emotional, something towards it. But it's just, that's just for me, I guess it's just the Game of Thrones comparison. If I didn't look at it as Game of Thrones, I probably would have a more respect towards it. But when I'm comparing this to Game of Thrones or any, brilliant art storytelling, for it to have these sort of minor flaws do kind of take me out of it, and it's just kind of like
I feel like your problems with it are compelling me not to watch.
Okay, again, I mean, everyone has different opinions. You may enjoy it, like, you know what I'm saying. I guess
Yeah, but you know me. It's like if characters have petty reasons to do things and like their character motivations are like very weak, I can't get behind that.
Yeah,
it's very difficult for me.
I don't think their motivations are weak. I don't think that's the same thing as saying that it's petty.
Yeah,
I think that's a different thing, because somebody's motivation for self-aggrandizement, self-interest is still a strong motivation if it's done well. I think it's just that you're viewing it as petty because it's selfish for some characters.
Well, it's not just selfish, but I think for me, it's just one, it's selfish, but two, I would like to know like what would be the alternative. That's the thing.
There's a realistic element to where I don't want to get too deep into spoilery land, but Otto, the character Otto, he kind of forces his family into this scheme, like against their will almost.
Yeah.
And then they grow up in it and they kind of are now forced to go along with it. Otherwise, they might get themselves killed if they don't. And it was all because of like one man's selfish ambitions.
Okay.
That kind of, and then now their whole family is like
there.
kind of forced to drive on this lane because otherwise they might, die if they go off. So there's kind of there's that element to it. So I wouldn't call it weak motivation. I would say that the element of the motivation is there.
Yeah.
It's just that you can argue and it's realistic to say that they really don't have a legitimate claim that they're fighting for.
Exactly. That's the thing.
It's their claim is not legitimate, but I don't think that means the motivation is weak.
Yeah, I agree with Osi on that. It's not like it's completely weak, and like obviously there's situations where it's like life or death. So it's understandable. I guess for me, again, when we think about Game of Thrones or we think about stories in general, it's just like, if it's like to have that kind of like, oh, this is why I just want power. For me to not have an alternative where it's just like, oh, this guy sucks, therefore I deserve to be the king.
Yeah.
That's kind of uncompelling.
I
That's what it is.
We'll see what happens. I think I'll watch it eventually.
Yeah.
It's just right now.
Exactly.
You've got 2 years before the next season, so
I'm chill with the anime.
that's another one of those I hate. That's another one of those I hate when they just like elongate this. But yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess once shut off. So
All right, so that was a lengthy discussion on some
was.
anime we've been watching, and then House of the Dragon
yes,
for a long time.
the rant of the House of the
And don't forget Andor.
Andor.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed our discussion, go ahead and give this video a like. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.